I'm sure that at some point in your life, you've thought about what you wanted to do in the future. Whether it be a lifelong goal or something you just wanted to get done today, we as humans are always moving forward. And if you're wondering what I want to do in the future, it's quite simple. I want a massive 50-floor tower in the middle of a populated city. I'll purchase a massive hologram projector in the front of it, issuing a challenge to everyone that if they manage to reach the top floor, they'll win an ungodly amount of money, with each floor being filled with hired goons, traps, and gift shops. The tower's gotta earn revenue somehow. I'll even add a casino in my beautiful marble lobby just to keep that cash flowing. Now, if you're asking, Kus, doesn't that sound extremely dangerous and you're basically just asking for a lawsuit? Well, don't you worry. I've strategically hired a PR team composed of mostly lesbians to keep those lawyers at bay. Now, my dreams of the future got me thinking about Deltarune. Specifically, which characters would make the best henchmen. Because who wouldn't want these charming, lovable characters working for you? Just imagine someone painstakingly making it through all 50 floors of my tower, and when they finally confront me at the top, I go, "So, you finally made it. Prepare to face your worst nightmare. Go, Susie Deltarune." Anyways, I'll be looking at Deltarune's main characters, enemies, and important side characters to find out which ones I would hire as my henchmen and which ones I'd leave unemployed. I'll be looking at their overall efficiency, how well they do my bidding, how they'd get along with others, and how cooperative they'd be to see which Deltarune characters would make for the best goons. Also, for convenience, I'll be using a slightly adjusted version of the tier list that I used for my Deltarune dating video, because, surprisingly, a lot of the tiers work for this scenario. And finally, before we start, I've got a little announcement. My dream of creating a 50-floor fight tower is one that would require a lot of cash. So I decided to open up some channel memberships. For $1, it's pretty simple. You get your name in the description of my videos. But for $3.99, that'll open up access to having your OC be featured as a background character in my videos. You know those random critters that just appear throughout my latest videos? That could be you. All you have to do is join, email me a drawing or two of an OC that you like, and a username that you want to be shouted out as. And with that, your character will become a permanent resident of Kustopia. I also have one-time donations if you want to show your support. And if you want to say something like, "Kus, this cash isn't for you, it's for your PR team for having to put up with you," that's also something you can do. Anyways, with the begging out of the way, let's see who would be the best Delta Goon. Now, let's start off this tier list with a wildly controversial character. Kris Dreamer is extremely difficult to rank as a hench-them. We've seen them do some work for a higher power, and from what we've seen, they're honestly not half bad. I know a lot of you guys agree that Kris would be a bad hench-them since they're always trying to defy the soul, but they also seem to be working with Carol Holiday, and their work with her isn't half bad, if you count being a snitch good work. But for real, due to how much we see Kris under the soul's control, I can't really judge their efficiency. But despite this, I do know a job that would be perfect for them. While people are trying to fight their way up the tower, we'll set up a piano on each floor, with Kris playing at their absolute best while chaos ensues around them. While I can't really say much about Kris's work ethic, I can definitely find them a place in my workforce. Susie Gaster is another character I had trouble ranking, because while Susie does have her moments of laziness, I feel like she'd love to have a job beating people up with her coworkers. And boy is Susie good at that. I think it'd be awesome keeping her as a bodyguard that stands like a badass next to me while I sit at a mahogany desk or leather armchair. You know, like all powerful people have. But I think the best thing to do is to put her on an early floor, so she doesn't get bored and make her own kind of fun. Something that I really had to think about was whether or not she'd be as disobedient as she was during Chapter 1. And I've gotta say no. For one, in this context, Susie's being hired and getting a paycheck so she can buy fun things, unlike in Chapter 1 where the role of a hero was being thrust upon her. Will she probably be standoffish starting out? Probably. But I feel like with time and a good attitude, she'll warm up to the job. She might warm up even easier if you previously hired Kris. And with her natural strength and skill with an axe, I'll definitely add Susie to my team. Oh, Ralph. Honestly, in my opinion, I feel like Ralsei would be the best out of the 3 heroes at being a henchman. Not only is he pretty darn strong, but he can bake, be an interior designer, act as a stepping stool, and he's overall just a delight. I'm sure that his cuteness would be a big morale booster to everyone. And he's even got past work experience. Being a butler for royalty is no joke. I think he might have some hesitation or even outright refuse if you order him to do anything too shady or immoral, but because of his diverse skill set, good attitude, and servient personality, I think Ralsei would be an amazing henchman. He'd certainly be the best chef/stepping stool. Honestly, based on pure flashiness, why wouldn't I hire Lancer? He's a kid who does awesome tricks on a flaming bike. Now, do I think he'd be able to follow orders? Probably. I know he can be a bit lazy and crude and not exactly the smartest, but he'll certainly try. Not to mention, he's got an interesting set of powers and he can both bounce and spin. He's like a sentient ball. I'd simply love to have that. So while he might not be everyone's pick for a henchman, I'd certainly want him on my workforce. He might even call me Bird Dad. That just sounds lovely. Now, while Rudens do seem like the perfect low-level goons to send into battle and watch them get beat up, I feel like they're a little too greedy to keep around. These fellas adore their riches, so I feel like the amount you'd need to pay to keep them around wouldn't match their henching quality. And despite the fact that they do some pretty decent henching in terms of being servants, Ruden is gonna be my first not hired on the list. Hathies are a pretty solid pick for henchwomen. Not only do Hathies seem quite lovely in terms of personality, but they act as solid support darkeners that aid frontline fighters in their attacks. And while their love for flirting might mean I'll have to hire an HR team, I don't mind. I need to get one anyway. Jigsaws, despite their cowardice, still choose to fight because it's their job. And although they're pretty unenthusiastic about fighting, I'm sure they'll cost a lot less to hire than Rudens. So I guess I found my large number of disposable henchmen that were made to be clobbered. Everyone needs some of those. Now, did they turn on their boss the moment a better opportunity came around? Yeah, but hey, I'm paying for quantity, not quality. Everyone needs a few good pawn men. While they aren't that effective at doing your bidding because of how simple they are, pawn men can still perform basic tasks. And due to them not having any will of their own, that means you don't have to pay them. Now, is it unethical to not pay your less intelligent employees? Actually, hearing it out loud does sound really bad. I'll just let the PR team handle it. I'm gonna add both K Round and C Round to the same category, since they're both the same guy. K Round would honestly work pretty darn well as a fighter in your ranks, due to its powerful, muscular legs. But good luck getting it to do any complex tasks, since it's completely unaware of its surroundings. I don't think there's a single thought in its little round head. Despite the fact you probably won't get any good henshin use from it outside of combat, it would serve as a perfect boss on one of my floors. But for you average non-tower owning people, you could ride it into battle as a buff-legged, checkered steed. I'd hire Jigsaw Joe for the sole fact that I'd barely have to pay him anything. Now, is that unethical? Yeah, but would he be a useful henchman? Kinda. He could be useful in training new henchmen since he's pretty good at giving tutorials. He'll just kinda be there. At least he seems loyal. Despite the fact that rabbits have no arms and legs, they can still somehow use a broom, which is super impressive. While they aren't anything special in terms of combat skill, I think they have a multitude of uses. They can act as janitors, cheerleaders to boost staff morale, and even act as surprise ambushes if I ever decided to make a very topiary floor in my tower. Bloxers are all around solid henchmen. They have a love for training and combat, and their high energy means they're always ready to do battle with your enemies. They also seem smart enough to do your bidding. The only downsides are 1, you're gonna have to reassemble them if they train too hard, and 2, their legs can separate from their body and become sentient. Hopefully that doesn't mean I have to pay them separately, because that would be a problem. I have no clue what I'd do with it. I probably wouldn't even have to pay it, but at the same time, what could it do for me? I guess Jigsaw Joe could use it to help train new recruits, so it's whatever. I guess I'll take it. Despite Clover having 3 heads, I think I'd be able to get away with giving her only 1 paycheck. And even if I couldn't, having a 3-headed monster on your side would be awesome. Making her a bodyguard while I sit at my mahogany desk would be a glorious sight. And hopefully the fact that one of the heads disagrees with the other 2 won't be a problem. And the sentence, "I'll just leave it to my giant 3-headed monster," is beautiful. Sure. I'll take the angry star with wings that can be defeated by ringing a bell. I don't think the bird would care if I paid it or not, so I'll just use it as a free obstacle. I have zero clue what Starwalker would do for me, but I'd rather have him as an ally instead of an enemy. So I'll hire him. Now, despite me saying that I wouldn't hire regular Rudins, I think the Rudin Rangers would be solid henchmen. Not only are they decently strong, but they're also fiercely loyal. And because they're not as greedy as Rudins and always want to show their superiority to them, getting them to join you should be easy. I might even make a few of them different colors to have my very own Power Rangers squad. Despite head Hathies not being as friendly and outgoing as regular Hathies, they still work as solid support Darkners. Also, their love for others and flirting is still there deep down, which honestly makes them even better henchmen if they can push their feelings to the side and focus on their work. I'm sure Sham would do well setting up a little shop in my tower, but as a henchman, I don't think he would be on board. His cynical, nihilistic viewpoint probably means he wouldn't take orders from me, which stinks, because he's supposed to be a very powerful magician. Oh well, you can't recruit them all. Yeah, that's gonna be a no from me. Jevil is way too mentally insane for me to ever consider hiring him as a henchman. I don't care how powerful he is. If I let him onto my workforce, there will be no more Kustopia Tower. And do you think I know how insurance works? I can't risk anything. I'd hire Rule's card for the sole fact that it would be funny. I would even give him his own floor and the resources to make puzzles. I doubt I'd even have to pay him or anything, just as long as I offer him some kind of position of power. Yeah, he's kind of annoying and weird, but having his special card at my disposal would be an absolute delight. So sure, I'll give this beautiful, weird man a chance as my number 2. He's definitely standing next to me while I sit at my mahogany desk material. Now, I'd really want to make King one of my henchmen. Having this big, powerful hamster guy on my side would be an absolute treat. But unfortunately, he's super bitter towards Lightners, and I'm pretty sure I'm one of them. He's also shown to be a pretty deceitful guy, so even if he does decide to join me as a henchman, I'll have to watch my back just in case he tries to pull any kind of spade sabotage. So despite how useful King's power would be, I just can't see a scenario where he follows orders and doesn't stab me in the back. Toriel as a henchwoman would be very interesting to see. While she doesn't have the firepower Undertale Toriel has, her diverse skill set would be very useful. She can bake, teach, and even sing. So while she wouldn't be partaking in battle, maybe I'll set up a bakery for her on floor 33 so I can drum up more revenue. The only issue I have with her is that I have no clue how well she'd follow orders. Toriel has always been a figure of authority, so we've never really seen her follow anyone else's orders. But I think if she's being hired to work, she'll be fine with it. I just wouldn't have her do anything shady. Despite Asgore owning his own flower business, we've seen the man do odd jobs for the holidays, meaning that if I hire him as a henchman, he'd probably be willing to do a bunch of different jobs. He can clean the henchman bathrooms, the regular bathrooms, and even work on the topiary floor I mentioned earlier. Asgore seems like the perfect candidate for henching, and despite pining over Toriel, he seems like a decently jolly guy. Also, I know we've never seen him fight, but those massive arms could be useful. He's able to pick Kris up with little effort, so sending him out to fight those who oppose me might be worth it. I would definitely put him at the mahogany table if I didn't assign him bathroom duty. Now, in his heyday, I could imagine Rudy wearing a leather jacket, some shades, and having his hair all greased up. The perfect look for a low-level goon. But, unfortunately, his illness prevents him from doing any kind of henching. So despite how much I'd want to hire Rudy, if he collapses on the job, that's on me. And I'm not gonna invoke the wrath of his family. Oh boy. Carol Holiday would be an incredible henchwoman. She's an extremely hard worker, has a powerful, icy demeanor, and she just dresses like she has power. And I think that's what the biggest problem with Carol is. She's way too overqualified to be my henchwoman, even if I give her mahogany table status. I feel like she'd take over my position at the top of Kustopia Tower in no time. I know we haven't seen much of her, but from the things we've seen and heard, I think she'd be too good for goon status. But like many people in this world, I have to get over my paranoia about losing power, because having a sharply dressed deer woman as a secretary or assistant would be amazing. She even comes with a sword, so you know what? I'll give her a chance. Here's another character who holds a big position of power. A police chief who can bench press cars would be an incredible henchwoman to have. Not only does she have power, but she takes her job very seriously, meaning she'd be incredibly efficient at the tasks I give her. She also wants some action in her life, so having her fight people for me would be great. So Undyne is extremely strong, a leader, and loves to fight. Are there any downsides? Well, she does hate criminals and ne'er-do-wells. But does the word henchman have to mean criminal? Oh, dang it. Now, if we have Undyne joining Kustopia Tower as a henchwoman, I'm sure we can bring Alphys along too. Undyne's always encouraging her to go out and do stuff, so maybe this could help bring her out of her shell. I think Alphys would listen if given orders. The only problem is that I have no idea what she'd even be useful for. She's not exactly prime henchwoman material, but hey. Maybe I can give her a job pushing papers on the 49th floor, which will be a bunch of offices and cubicles where we shred all of our lawsuits. And yes, people will still be fighting on it. Alright, I convinced myself. While she isn't the pinnacle of a good henchwoman, she can be useful. I'll just have to warn her about her wallpapers to prevent any kind of HR problems. Now this may come as a surprise, but I don't think Sans would make a good henchman. While it is impressive that he runs his own business, he's one of the biggest rage baiters in Deltarune, and I think that trying to get him to do any kind of goonery would be a pain in the ass. I could maybe see him running our gift shop or something, but as a henchman, yeah, I don't think so. I'll be putting these two on the same job application since they're an iconic duo. And while we haven't seen either of their fighting capabilities, I don't see a reason why the two of them wouldn't be solid henchmen. I mean, Caddy's already employed, so I'm sure the two of them would listen to orders pretty well together. The only thing I'd have to do is assign them as partners. And thinking about it now, maybe I should start assigning certain qualified henchmen up in duos, like Baroqueworks from One Piece. And while their teamwork is a pretty useful skill, I think Caddy's esoteric weirdness wouldn't be half bad at intimidating people who've wronged me. Now, if we're including Noelle's ice powers, I definitely think she'd be a very solid henchwoman. Despite her timidness, I think she'd be able to follow orders pretty well. She's also really smart and seems to be a hard worker. And in this scenario, I will not be including Snowgrave, because I do not have it in me to manipulate Noelle. She'll be paid for her work and treated with respect. Maybe I could hire someone to help her master Snowgrave. Anyways, pairing her up with Susie to be hench partners might be the optimal strategy, or it could result in them never getting anything done for me. So because of Noelle's powerful ice magic and who she is as a person, I'd love to have her on board. Now, if you've been keeping up with Kustopia, you know how I feel about Birdly. And this time around, things are no different. I'd love to have Birdly on board. Sure, the other henchmen might be a bit standoffish to him because of how he is, but he honestly gets stuff done. He's had prior work experience and is one of the only members of his class to have a job. He's also pretty solid in combat, and he's a fellow Bluebird. No, I'm not biased. When it comes to Birdly, something that I don't really see a lot of people talk about is how quickly he adapted to the Dark World. Despite only being in the cyber world for a small amount of time, he was able to fight the Fun Gang pretty well. So even though he'd probably annoy every other underling I have, him being somewhat competent means I'd love him on my side. While Werewires have some pretty awesome electricity powers, ethically, I don't really know if I should hire them. Because almost every Werewire is under Queen's mind-controlling wires, and I don't think the Kustopia uses mind-controlled servants controversy needs any more light shined on it. I know they'd be really good henchmen because they always follow orders, but even if I do pay them, what could they spend their money on? Maybe I'd hire those special werewires that don't seem to be under mind control, but overall, I think I ethically have to say no. There's a difference between henchmen and slaves. Of course I'll hire the giant cats with sound powers. Despite their name, I don't really think they can complete any kind of henching tasks for me besides fighting. But honestly, that's okay. Every morally dubious boss needs a cat to pet while they sit at their mahogany desk. I don't see why not. They all have previous criminal records, and seem nice enough to work with other henchmen. I think they'd make perfect goons. Ambulances would be pretty solid candidates for henchmen. They're decently powerful, have a strong sense of duty, and work hard at their jobs, so they'd definitely follow orders to the T. They would be the perfect security for Kustopia Tower. The only problem is that they're members of law enforcement. I don't know how they'd feel about working for someone morally dubious. Also, having ambulances and Viro-Viro-Coons working at the same building might be a problem, considering the fact that they're rivals. But if the Fun Gang can make them tolerate each other, maybe I can too. Honestly, despite being a random enemy, I think pop-ups would genuinely be really good henchmen. Hiring them to go around and give my business free publicity would be amazing. Imagine walking down the street one day until suddenly, you're grabbed into an alley by two dolphin-looking thugs as they flash advertisements in your face. That sounds like an amazing idea, and the relationship is mutually beneficial, as the pop-ups will get all the attention they want, so they're hired. Yeah, I'll hire some mice. Even though they won't be very effective henchmen due to being just slightly larger rodents, I'd probably only have to pay them in cheese, and having a massive army of mice does sound like it'd be a lot of fun. So despite their weird relationship with tasks and swatchlings, I think it'd be a good idea to bring some aboard. Yeah, that was awful, I'm sorry. Of course I'd hire a group of mice that transformed into a wheel. That's one step closer to my vision of a mouse car. I don't care if they wouldn't be the greatest henchmen. If I drove a car made entirely of mice, that would be the dream. Now, is it animal cruelty? I don't need to know. I'll just have my PR team take care of that mess. Now, the Sweet Captain Cakes trio are all gonna go in the same spot since they're a package deal. And despite them being rebellious teens, I don't think they'd try and rebel against me. I didn't do anything as heinous as banning music, so if I hired them, I'm sure the trio would follow orders. The only problem is that the trio get easily distracted by music and dancing. So while they do work well together and have a pretty sweet ride, I don't expect top-notch work. Newbert is the perfect symbol of motivation for my henchman. He's a kind-hearted soul who never leaves someone behind. And because everyone loves him, his addition to my ranks would make everyone's day a little brighter. You might be a low-level grunt who got whooped almost instantly, but at least you get to live knowing Newbert's a constant in your life. You know, back when I first played Deltarune Chapter 2, I didn't understand the appeal of having a large army of muscular bird creatures who are undyingly loyal to you. But now I do. Wear wires, unlike their weaker counterparts, actually absorb the energy of the wires through sheer willpower. I think that means they're not under mind control, so I think it'd be ethical to recruit them. And recruit them I shall. Despite being really aggressive, they're quite strong and would make solid goons. I just hope I can maintain their respect, or risk getting electrocuted. Yet another Darkner who would be the perfect henchwoman. She's a natural leader, a decently strong fighter, and is capable of keeping my building orderly and clean. She can also command tasks, meaning that with her around, I could start having them do my bidding. Overall, Task Manager deserves a place right next to the mahogany table. Do I even have to say anything? Despite not being a fighter from what we've seen, a calm, collected leader who's incredibly loyal to his boss would make for the perfect henchman. Get over here next to the table. Now, Spamton is an interesting case. He's honestly got enough power to be a decent henchman in his normal form. The only problem is that he's an incredibly unpredictable little gremlin. He's another character I would constantly distrust. In Chapter 2's Weird Route, we see that he decided to take over Queen's Mansion after getting his Neo body, meaning that he will try and gun for power if given the opportunity. I don't think he'd follow orders and he'll most likely double-cross me, but gosh darn it, I want to give him a chance. Now is that crazy? Yeah. But maybe giving him a job will help get his life back on track. Now is that incredible wishful thinking? Yeah. But I'm certainly willing to try. Now, compared to King, I feel like there's a slightly lower chance of her double-crossing me. And even though she probably wouldn't respect me, I still think it'd be really funny to have her as a henchwoman. I feel like she'd just spin around in her flying chair all day and rage bait me while I sit at my mahogany desk. I'll give hiring Queen a shot. I just have to be ready for anything, because around her, things explode. Shadow guys are what I believe to be the perfect henchmen. I mean, a bunch of dudes wearing fedoras and suits wielding Tommy guns? I'll take 100. Not only do they seem to carry out their orders pretty efficiently, but they also seem to have pretty well-rounded skill sets. They're decent fighters, can play music, and they seem to be down for whatever you want them to do. And while they did turn on Tenna, they stayed loyal to him up until their contracts were destroyed. meaning that they all respect the boss-employee dynamic. I'm sure if I pay them in actual money and not points, along with giving them assignments that aren't just filing virtual paperwork, Shadow Guys will be top-tier henchmen. The Pippins are a mischievous bunch. Like the Shadow Guys, they seemed decently loyal to Tenna up until their contracts were destroyed, with them then proceeding to loot all of his stuff. These guys don't really enjoy following the rules, as one Pippin even helps you sneak into the S-rank room in Chapter 3. But despite this, the Pippins still went along with Tenna's show because it was their job, meaning that if they work for me, they'll follow my orders like proper henchmen. I'll just do my best not to mistreat them, so I don't come into work one day missing all of my stuff. A bunch of big, burly bouncers would be incredibly useful. I might as well have some of these guys around. Like the previous two Darkners I covered, these guys were pretty loyal to Tenna up until the end, so I have no doubt they'd be reliable bodyguards. I'd hire Shutta to go around to each floor, take photos, and sell them to people after they finish my tower. Kinda like how roller coasters do. While I'm not sure how effective they'd be at being henchmen, they can make me money, so they're hired. Of course I'm gonna hire the water cooler. I'll have one on every floor so other henchmen can have a spot to stand by and chat. And if anyone tries to mess with them, they'll understand the mistake they made very shortly. And while I don't think they'd be able to follow my orders and do stuff for me, the sheer fact that they're present is a positive in my book. A weird frog creature that loves being dirty isn't exactly what I'd call prime henchman material, but I wouldn't mind having them aboard. I'll just have to hire janitors to keep an eye on them to make sure they don't leave too much of a mess. And besides, I need to hire janitors anyway. They do seem to have some sentience, so I'm sure they could follow orders and carry out commands. So why the heck not? I think the two of them would be good henchmen. The only problem is that if they get into a fight with each other, it'll be kind of a pain to interact with them, since they're both incredibly dramatic. But luckily, that's what HR is for. So hopefully, any kind of relationship drama won't affect their work. But due to the fact that they were loyal to Tenna and they seem decently competent, I'll gladly have them as a hench couple. Honestly, out of every main chapter antagonist in Deltarune, I think Tenna is the least likely to betray you. The man just misses when the attention was on him, so letting him take control of a few floors on the tower wouldn't be half bad. Give him the space to create what he wants where all the eyes will be on him. By doing this, I'm sure Tenna would love to be your henchman. He's a charismatic guy with a talent for showmanship, so plastering him on advertisements would be incredibly useful. He can also be shady, meaning he can do deceitful stuff to your enemies if you want him to. And while he does have his issues, I feel like he won't cause too many problems. Now, I don't know if the Shadow Mantle holder would be down to work for me. They honestly seem pretty insane. But imagine using it like the Doctor Strange cloak. That'd be awesome. With that single thought in my head, I gotta try. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on the knight. I'm not even sure if I'd be able to hire them in the first place. They're honestly terrifying, and I don't like knowing that at any point, I could get instantly swooned without seeing it coming. And even if I do somehow hire the knight, will it even follow my orders? Yeah, the Roaring Knight as a henchman sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. So I'm gonna have to say no. But if they were guaranteed to be loyal, boy would that be awesome. I think that having Chinese ghosts as henchmen would be pretty darn cool. Some of them even worked for Gerson, and from what I've seen, they're able to perform tasks, so they're definitely hired. I just need to hire a translator who speaks Mandarin to follow me around at all times. I think Balthazar would be a good henchman. I know the smell of incense can make some people sick, but I think its easygoing personality would be appreciated within my henchman army. The only problem is that its incense could set off the smoke alarms, so please burn any incense outside of the building. While I do think mizzles are interesting, they constantly doze off, and I don't know if they'd be happy listening to me, especially if I disturb their sleep, so I guess I'm gonna have to give out one of my rare no's. Would it be a bit crazy to hire ancient wizards that only talk in mumbles? Maybe, but you have to take into account that I'm hiring wizards. That sounds awesome. And even though I'll never understand what they're saying, at least they could spell it out for me. Due to their advanced age, I don't think I'll be giving them any difficult assignments. So I'll just stick them in the office cubicles with Alphys. The Cuptons are pretty much useless when it comes to a fight, but despite this, they're able to carry a lot of weight, which means they could be useful when it comes to manual labor. And it helps that there are a lot of them. The only problem is their motivations. The Cuptons strive to find and protect princesses, and since I didn't hire any, why would they listen to me? Well, oh, here we go. I could tell them that by working for me, it would lead them on the path to finding more princesses. They always want to climb higher, so why not 50 floors higher? And if that doesn't work, I might have to go back on my mizzle choice. Look, I said this before in my Deltarune dating video. If I was given a chance to be near a sentient sword with wings, I'm taking that opportunity. I'll hire a few to fly around my office. The only issue is that they're extremely chaotic and want a revolution. Maybe because I'm morally dubious, they'll see working for me as an act of revolution. Let me cope, people. But if they are willing to join up with me, I'll hire them in a heartbeat. Having a group of organics in the back working on all of my evil paperwork would be pretty nice. Maybe I could make a legal team full of organics. The only problem is that they're extremely cryptic. But hey, maybe they could scare their way into winning in court. Wickabells are said to love causing chaos, so hiring them to mess with people would be great. Now, there is the problem of how I'd keep them in line, but if Kris was able to humble them and have them join Castletown, I'm sure I could find a way too. Yeah, I'm gonna give Jackenstein an entire floor of his own. In fact, get over here. Having this absolute Goliath by your side would be a delight. Not only can he carry you places on his back, but he's also extremely kind and loving. Also, he has some previous job experience. But I think the best thing about hiring Jackenstein is that he comes with a giant, terrifying pumpkin. With all of these benefits, why wouldn't I hire him? Instead of hiring the Mizzles, I might just hire Miss Mizzle. That way, the Cuptons have some motivation to stay with me. But I genuinely think Miss Mizzle would hate working for me. To keep her around, I might have to just give her her very own floor, where she and the people who worship her can stay. There's a lot of ups and downs to hiring Miss Mizzle, but just to keep the Cuptons around, I'll hire her. I would hire it, but not as a henchman who does jobs for me. Instead, it'll be a trap in my office, disguising itself as a simple decoration. Once someone reaches the top and tries to confront me, it'll spring to life and go to town on them. It's got the power and speed to do so too. I'll definitely want to hire it. Now, despite how useful of an asset Gerson would be, I don't think he'd want to join up. There's no way in hell he'd listen to orders, and would probably just mess with me. But there's also the chance that he'll stick around to give me life lessons and stuff. Or maybe he'd be amused enough by the idea of a massive battle tower that he'd stick around. It's all very hypothetical, but if there's a small chance I could add Gerson to my ranks, I'll do it. Those things are absolutely terrifying. I don't think I want to add them to my ranks because I don't know if they're sentient or not. They can't talk or be spared, and they only really serve the Titan, so I think I'm gonna have to pass. As awesome as it would be to just summon a Titan out of nowhere, that thing will absolutely destroy my precious building. If I had the capacity to keep it contained somewhere and summon it like Maharaga from Jujutsu Kaisen, I would. But unfortunately, I don't think I can do that. So as much as it hurts me to say this, I'm gonna have to say no to hiring the Titan. I honestly forgot these guys existed when I was writing my script. But with all the good work they did for Tenna, why wouldn't I hire them? Everybody needs an iconic trio of henchmen. So there we have it. A definitive list of which characters would make the best Delta goons. With this list in mind, I'm gonna go back to structuring Kustopia Tower to accommodate all my new henchmen. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Tell me in the comments your top picks for henchmen, and if you want, become a channel member. Anyways, thank you all for watching, my name's Kustopia, and I will see you all next time.